All right, friends, back on it. Today I hope to finish up the wiring on the Jeep, although it's been relegated to the outside of the garage and the sun's hot. They're doing a bunch of construction over there, and the only way they communicate is by yelling at each other, so who knows how far we'll get. But I've got a few things I need to do. I got all my components here for the detonation module, my EGR solenoid, EGR stuff, and it's all clipped into this real nice harness again that I got from Howell EFI. It's all clipped in real nice. I got a couple things I'm not going to use. AC request, air diverter valve or solenoid. So I'm gonna just cut those, terminate those. Same thing with a vehicle speed sensor. I don't need that. So I'm gonna get rid of those. But I just got them tied off right now. What I'm gonna do in the next few minutes here is just pretty this stuff up, figure out where I need to get some wires tied in, and then kind of come up with a plan where they need to go. The one thing I do have going on here is my battery. It was right here, but with my exhaust pipe and my alternator, it doesn't fit there. So I'm gonna have to build my battery bracket so that I can hang my battery right here, which is fine. That'll be just fine right there. I just need to make sure it's tied down real good. You don't want a battery jumping around when you're, trying to drive. In the meantime, what I'm gonna focus on right now is this wiring underneath. I've got to mount my little fuse block that came with the Howell kit, and then it's got just a few tie-ins. I've got an ignition feed that I need. I need to tie up my diagnostic link so I can plug in and read codes. That's got to get tied up somewhere. And then I think I have, service engine soon light, which I want to tie into. I was going to use my low oil pressure light, but that's another story. I'm not using that, but I'll use my amp light. I think I can go in there and tie it into that amp light. So when the amp light comes on, I know it's my amperage light comes on. I know it's my check engine. I went in and picked up a 1-wire O2 sensor, so that'll clip right into the harness that I have real easily. So anyway, I got to spend just a little bit of time now underneath the dash of this thing, finding these wires that I need for this stuff and tying it all up. Make it look pretty, tie it up, clip it all out of the way, and then once I'm done with that, then we'll move back out here and start figuring out terminating wires. It's not just a matter of the wire harness from Howell. There's also the normal stuff I got to tie in, I got to reconnect my headlights, but the big thing is like my coil wire. I need to bring it over to the coil, my stuff over to the starter. One question I have, this kit has somewhere starter solenoid wire, which I assume is in addition to my normal one. I don't know. I got to figure that kind of stuff out. So I'm going to gussy up a little bit of wiring, button it up, do some zip tying, put my little grommet in there all the way, and then we'll probably go back to doing some fabricating to build my battery bracket, and then hopefully we can call that electrical system done. Okay, here's a wrap up for the day. I'm done. It's time to go grill something and take it easy. But here's where we sit. It looks worse than it actually is. I have all my EGR stuff mounted here. I'm not afraid to use a few zip ties. I have to tie this thing up for wherever it goes on the EGR. I got my relay mounted for my fuel pump. Inline fuses there set for the computer ECM and as well as for the fuel pump. That's what that dangling wire is for, is I gotta go down there and terminate it and tie it off. And I gotta stretch a couple of wires too, for my alternator and for my starter and whatnot. So that'll get done tomorrow, but I got my stuff buttoned up underneath the dash. That's a big step. That's all tied up. I have my fuse block mounted there, and then as discussed, my check engine light is right back here where my amp gauge. So when that comes on, and I tested the light before I tied it all in. So that'll be my check engine light. So that's it for the electrical part. Fuel's complete, electrical's complete. I gotta do my plumbing, my cooling. I got a new radiator for that, which is a good thing because my original radiator I got did not fit. So tomorrow, hopefully, we get that set up in there. Okay, well, we're back at her here on the old Jeep. Oh man, this is like the never-ending project. But today we got to tackle the radiator. I got to get that thing mounted. Check it out. Let me show you what I got going on. Okay, so I decided to get a different radiator for a couple reasons. One, the old radiator didn't fit in there with the way that the exhaust is run now. And two, the old radiator was falling apart. And three, I guess, I didn't think the old radiator might not be up to the task of cooling like this. And I wanted to start with a fresh one. So for like 128 bucks or something off eBay, we got this. This is actually the second radiator I bought because the first one was supposed to be a replacement for a CJ5 with a V6, yada yada, gonna be perfect, but it was too tall, it didn't fit, and most of the reason is because of the way I ran my exhaust here. I think, in hindsight, I probably could have done this differently. Like, for example, get the real thin pulley. This is a triple pulley for whatever reason, it's all I could find for the bottom. Just maybe a single pulley on the bottom and have that exhaust run back up as tight to it as I can, or maybe lower or higher or something. Or maybe do like the old Y-block Ford motors where they just bring it up over the front here. I don't know, but it's in the way there. And so I had to go with this radiator because of the side tank setup. Side tank gives me more height here, allows my hood to close down on it with space. So this is where we're at. And you can see I've used my highly technical shim devices, such as a couple of broken bricks from that project. More about that later. But I've got it set where I think I want it to ride. It's about as high up as it can go with the hood still clearing it. And I need that to get away from my exhaust. And the other thing is, this is gonna be a nightmare making my hose connect from there to there. As you can see, this radiator kind of projects right into my fan belt. So if I could look into my crystal ball, I see myself moving my alternator bracket to the other side. What fun that's going to be. I'm feeling a little salty today. I just kind of want to get this done, but I don't want to, cut a bunch of corners. I want to get it done right. So I've got this mocked up. I'm going to build some brackets, and they're going to be real simple brackets. They're just going to go, you can't really tell, but this lip bends down on the front there. And I'm just going to be able to go off that lip and kind of have like an L-shaped bracket that'll come up underneath and hold this thing from the bottom. I'll probably cut one piece of sheet metal, like a pan, that the bottom of the radiator will ride in, then have a couple of, I don't know, strap or whatever that just ties around there, bolts in there if the sheet metal's not strong enough. We'll see. For the bottom and then for the top, I'm thinking about what I want to do, because here, right here, is where my supports used to fit, but they don't fit with the radiator now. So I will probably build something that will come all the way across here. I've got room, maybe even to come out like this and have something that bolts in there that I can bolt my new supports to, like that, as well as anchor my radiator in. I don't know, that's all the stuff we got to figure out. But if you do this, I'll tell you, it's easier with the side tank radiator. Actually gives you more room. I don't know if it's easier, but it gives you more room and a necessity for this. So I'm gonna go sit down in my figuring out chair for a little bit, stare at this for a little while longer, and then probably just get the zip cut out and start cutting some metal up and try to find a way to tie that radiator in. All right, making a little bit of progress here. It started raining, so brought the Jeep in here, put the race car outside, then it stopped raining. Oh well, Jeep's in here, we're gonna work on it and get this thing going. I have my brackets built for the bottom, and I'll show you the details of how I came out with that later, but it's gonna be real solid. I like it. I think it's gonna work well. I just now need to, I reached out to a buddy of mine, I need to move this water neck. I think that's gonna be the biggest thing, is if I can make that water neck, see how it angles in? If I could make it point down instead of angling in, have that same amount of angle but angled straight down, that'd be good, because then it would go right over there and right into there. So I reached out to him, see if I can get that done. This was kind of a pain to figure out the height and everything between the hood coming down. I needed some Play-Doh or clay to go in between there because I wanted it to be close but not touching. I didn't have any, so I used a banana. You can kind of see the little mark up there still. It was fine. It worked. It squished down. I got like a, I don't know, 1/4 inch clearance, 1/2 inch, something like that. Nah, 1/4 inch. Which is good because, again, everything with doing the swap has been a balance of trying to make things fit where they can fit the best. And this, I wanted up away from my exhaust pipe the most I could without getting into my hood. And I needed it to be, you know, not necessarily centered, but at least most of the core going in the grill area because I need the cool air going there. So I think that's going to work where it is. Here's my bracket that I made. Oh, goodness. Don't drop it. Here's the bracket that I made. Real fancy angler. Oh, and you can see, I don't know if I had this on earlier, my little heat shield. I just welded some 1/4 inch bolts onto my exhaust and then, you know, use those as studs off of there and then put a little piece of sheet metal on there. It's pretty thick. I think it's like 16 gauge sheet metal. Anyway, these, I just welded basically a stud onto here. It goes through a hole in the cowl, and that is how it's going to hold there. I'll put some rubber, like an inner tube rubber down in there to keep it from wearing a hole in my radiator. But now I just need to come in here and stitch that together a little bit better, clean it up, grind it all out, and then I'll paint it black. Then we get to move on to our top radiator mounts and our fan. All right, it's been like all day, and I've been running around doing a bunch of different stuff. But we have our radiator together, our radiator mount. Here's what we got. Remember, exhaust, my shield to keep it keep the heat away, and then here's the bracket that we ended up building. This guy right here, which ended up, because it's a radiator and I don't want anything to get into it, ended up welding all my bolts in, cutting the heads off and welding them in and grinding it smooth. And this radiator sits right in this bracket, and my fan actually bolts on off right there and sits right up against the radiator. Oh, it looks good. And now that thing rests in here, and then I just have these dumb little brackets here that'll mount like that and tie the thing up. So that's it. I've got it together. I'm gonna go ahead and put some black paint on it, and then it's dinner time. So I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night. But tomorrow morning, I'm gonna get back on this thing, finish getting my radiator mounted, and lots more stuff. So we're gonna call that quits for now. But make sure if you haven't done so, you subscribe so you can continue watching these videos. We're gonna get this thing running real soon. All right, just as a wrap up of the radiator install, this is it. I took it down to my buddy down at Hot Rod Heaven, Zach. He cut the neck off, rotated it down that angle. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's rotated down instead of in. So now it doesn't aim at my belt. It aims right where I need it to. So I can just do a little 90-degree right off my water pump right into there. I've done better work, but I couldn't put a bolt through here, so I just welded in these tabs to extend my supports, core supports out. So it's nice and solid, and yes, that is factory, the way that's crooked. Now my radiator's not crooked, but it's in there mounted solid, real nice. It's located up and down, left, right, not going anywhere. I even put a little bit of inner tube in here. Again, that's not too fancy, but it's gonna keep it from tearing it up. And locked in good. I do have space there between my fan and my water pump pulley. It's good. Obviously, I got a little bit of wiring to do to get my water pump hooked up, or my electric fan hooked up, but I'm ready to move on to the next phase. There it is. Came out pretty good. Follow along. We'll see how this electrical system goes. All right, friends, welcome back. Bad Hombre Garage here. Doing the Chevy 4.3 liter V6 swap into my 64 Willys CJ5. It's coming along. It's getting close. Man, I wish I had found videos of somebody putting one of these in these Jeeps so that I didn't have to learn a lot of the lessons I learned along the way here, but I'm glad I can share them with you. if you're doing this, put this down in the comments. Tell me what you're doing an engine swap for this or something similar. Anyway, let me get you caught up. We finished up most of our electrical system with our harness all set up in there. We got our radiator all set up. I just have to get hoses, which I think I've got a solution for. But now I got to put my battery in. Now the battery stock was here. It was mounted up there and here and had a big burly mount here, but there's no room anymore because I got a radiator there and an alternator sticking in the way. So I'm gonna put it here instead. All I gotta do is I gotta take my original battery out. This is what was down there. Now I just gotta take probably the torch to it, maybe a little bit of drill some holes, maybe put some cool designs and paint it black and make that battery bracket something that'll mount right there on the firewall. So in the snap of a finger, I will bring you guys back with my new battery mount. Wrong finger. Bam, there you go. What do you think, huh? Yeah, obviously this isn't the old one. The old one's on the pile of junk over there. This is one of those times I went to Amazon and said I'd rather spend 35 bucks than 3 hours of my life building a battery bracket. So we got this guy, it's just a kit. I kind of bolted it together. It should work pretty good. This kind of goes like that, I think. My only trick is, because I put my bolts here to mount the ECM on the inside there, that I don't want to redo, I got to kind of make it stand off. So I'll find some spacers, get it mounted in here, maybe use some of the holes that were already there. Anyway, I'll make it stand off, get that bracket in there, and finally get a battery mounted in this thing. Hey guys, new day, Bad Rumber Garage here. I've just been chipping away at little stuff on this Jeep, trying to put all the little pieces in place. I'll get you updated where we are. I got my battery mounted. It was really easy, that Amazon deal, 35 bucks. I'll do that every time, man, as opposed to spending a whole day sitting on my welding bench, cutting and whatever. And anyway, that's slick. So I tied it in. It came with hardware and it had these big, I don't know if you can tell, but it had big bolts, giant bolts, like 7/16 bolts to hold it on. Pretty sure 3/8 bolts will work, so I just used some of the nuts as my spacers to get it off of there to make room for those bolts that were already in the firewall. I used 2 1/4-inch bolts that had already threaded into the firewall there for the top part, and then a 3/8 bolt down there in the bottom, which I put my ground. Grounds are important. I learned that kind of the hard way before, so it is grounded. Battery's grounded to the body as well as to the engine, and then the engine is to the frame through that bolt there. But if I really wanted to be sure about this, I would tie one more from this to the frame, but I'm good with that. It was really easy to run my one cable from my starter right up to the positive post on the battery, and then the wiring harness that I got from Howell EFI called for 1 constant hot. So I tied that in right there. What else did I do here? Oh man. I went to the auto parts store looking for radiator hoses. I had the radiator hoses off of the old original Jeep engine that were actually the right shape, kind of, that I needed, but I just needed new ones and needed to be different diameters, and so you know how that goes. Hey, I need a radiator hose. What kind of vehicle? Well, it's kind of for a custom deal. Yeah, what kind of vehicle? All right, it's for a CJ5 1964. You know, whack, whack, whack. What engine? 4.3 liter V6. Oh, that's not an option. Yep. So then they finally let me go back and look at the wall, just kind of rifle through their hoses, and I found 2 that work. One, the top one actually is pretty darn close, and then the bottom one is just one of those universal jobbers that I had to cut one end off and cut some of the wire coils out of the inside. Anyway, it works. Again, really happy my friend Zach redid that water neck for me. Works great. I filled it up with antifreeze and water, spilled some on the ground, had a leak, tightened clamps, fixed it, mopped up the ground. Then I put some gas in it, dumped some gas in the tank, some gas on the floor. Immediately found out where it was leaking out of one of my fittings on going in and out of my fuel pump, but I tightened that up and got it working. I just stuck my new rotor cap on there. I brought it up on top dead center, put my rotor and cap on where it looks close, hooked my plug wires up per the firing order stamped onto the intake manifold, which I'm glad that was there. And then I disconnected this wire here. This one in the kit says EST disconnect to set timing. Okay, so I've got that close, dialed in. Again, it's on top dead center, number 1. I put my rotor in where it's pretty darn close. Everything's close. I did turn the key on just to see if it does what it's supposed to do, which if you listen here, it will. My fuel pump should come on and then go off. So the key on. Yeah, beauty, right? Goes on, goes off. Oh, the oil light being on reminds me I need to put a nut on my dummy light right here because that's the wrong nut. I got to find a better way of putting that on, so I'll tie that up real quick before we try firing this thing off. But that's where we're at. We are at the point of starting this bad boy. I'm gonna have to do a little research. I'm not sure if we set this thing like timing wise. I think I just zero it. I think I put it in 0, 0, and then hook it back up, and then the computer does its thing. I don't know. I just want to fire this thing up and see if it works. And I did also, yeah. So we were turning the key on and off a couple times. Check, make sure I didn't have any more fuel leaks. It's good. That's good. I don't have my fan hooked up yet, so I don't want to let it get warm, but I do want to see if it makes noise. So I'm gonna piddle with a couple things, put it on the tripod, and hey, you'll see it here first, man. Fire up of the old 4.3. This thing's been in a long time coming. This is exciting. It's always fun. Anytime you fire up something the first time, especially a build like this. I mean, I went through this whole engine, bearings and rings and everything. It's been a long time coming. I'm excited about this. I've got my trusty timing light set on 0, and I'm just gonna bring it into 0 on here with the distributor once I do get it running, and then we can clip that little wire back together. I guess it's good. First things first, let's just see if this thing will make some noise. I should turn the key on, fuel pump should come on and go off, start cranking, and it should do its thing. This is the first time I've ever done this with the old throttle body injection, but I don't know, let's go find out. So when I get it fired up and running, I'm gonna check that oil pressure right away and make sure it's making good oil pressure. This is the roller camshaft that was in the engine. The hydraulic rollers are back in the same spot they were before, so I'm not concerned about breaking in a camshaft. Really, the big thing is just getting our rings to seat. So, which it's just gonna have to happen. All right, enough. Let's fire this thing up. Let's see what happens. Here goes nothing. Well, it worked, it runs. That's pretty exciting. I played with the timing just a little bit there to try to make it run a little better, but my timing light wasn't hooked up. So we're gonna fire it up again. I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna put the light on it. Forgive the smoke everywhere. I painted my exhaust. There's, oil on different things where I've grabbed them and brand new stuff. So it's gonna make some smoke here as it burns off on the initial fire up, but that's part of the game. And the exhaust is terrible because I don't have my exhaust run all the way out on it. Just have it halfway back. I still need to put my tailpipe and muffler. Anyway, I'm gonna fire it up again, set the timing, maybe even get the temp to come up a little bit. Let's do this. All right, so my problem is I don't have enough rotation on my distributor. It wants to be advanced more than that, but I can't quite get it. So I'm going to, I guess I'm going to rotate my plugs, bring them around one, bring it back, and try to see if I can get it to start again. So yeah, wish me luck. We'll see what happens. All right, well, this was kind of what I feared on my distributor placement, because the way my firewall is with the EGR and the way that these stick out here, I only have so much play. So I rotated my wires to bring it back this way, and it's maxed out this direction as far as it'll go. I got a feeling I'll be doing an EGR delete on this thing later, but for now I just want to go with that. And so the best I could do is to get it about 4 degrees before top dead center, which I hope that's going to be fine. It sure sounds a lot better, runs better. One thing I got going on is this little guy right here, my little tab, I think it rubs right there on my bottom pulley because it makes a little bit of noise, and that dampers a little harmonic balancer, whatever's, it wobbles. I don't like that. I don't like it at all. I'm going to ignore that for now, though. But I'll fire it up. You can see how much better it runs. You can see the oil pressure and everything, too. Fix that. That's driving me nuts. I wonder if I can make that thing not hit so bad. Well, I'm gonna have to work on that. Isn't this a beauty though, man? It fires up, idles. It feels like it's coming up on temp a little bit. Looking good. All right, guys, if you can't tell, I'm pretty fired up. This is pretty exciting. Good stuff. Seems to fire up pretty well. That little timing tab rubbing, I just bent it up out of the way so it doesn't rub anymore. I have to do a little adjustment, fine-tuning on my belts because I didn't realize my alternator's just a touch crooked, so that's going to take a little work tomorrow off camera. Otherwise, I've rehooked the little wiring back up, the wire back up for timing. She does well, man. Fires up, idles, good. Now I really got to get busy. All I have to do is everything else before I can drive it. I've got to tie in my electric fan, make sure that's going to work off of the automatic on, off, and all that stuff. Thankfully, I had a mystery wire over here that is a 12-volt keyed. That's exactly what I needed for it. So I'll put that in with a relay somewhere in here. tomorrow, and then also tomorrow, I get to tackle all of this. I've got to figure out my clutch linkage. I had it all hooked up, but my clutch didn't quite have enough throw. So I'm going to do a little extension on some arms and a little physics and whatnot and make my clutch work effectively. That is a problem for another day. For now, hey, thanks for following along. It's always exciting when this thing, when you get to fire up an engine for the first time. This is good. I just can't wait to drive this. Hopefully tomorrow we're peeling out here in the road in front of the house. All right, we're back on it. Stoked because this thing fires up and runs, but it does not drive because my clutch linkage appears not to function correctly. And I don't have it hooked up now. Now, here's the story. When I got this bell housing and transmission together as one unit, it came out of a Jeep that had a small block Chevy in it. So then I ordered parts that I thought would make it work, like this clutch fork, which I ordered from Willys, and it's supposed to be the right ratio that the stock linkage will work, but it doesn't. So when I put it all together, it didn't seem to disengage the clutch. Now there's a chance after I fired it up and ran the engine that it might free up, but in the process of this, and I'm going to try to stick it down here where you can see, stick the camera in here where you can see what I'm talking about. There you go. In the process of all this, I noticed this hole was so wallered out here, and that's a technical word, wallered, that I needed to do something about that because that's a bunch of slack in my clutch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this and at the same time give it some more throw so that when I operate my clutch pedal and it gets that much movement, now I'm going to have throw up here, which hopefully gives me enough for that to operate. It goes back and it turns the bell crank here, pulls on that, which in turn, there we go, sorry I lost you there, which it pulls on this lever, which then pulls the clutch fork right there. So this stuff's all good. I have that linkage, I can hook that back up, but I need to make more throw a little bit. So I think that's going to do it by fixing that little piece there. All right, we're moving on. I got my clutch linkage all squared away. I'm not the expert on it, but I'll just tell you, I just had to play with it and get it squared. I was actually throwing too much with the clutch and something was going on in there that sounded terrible, but a little bit of adjustment and we got that all squared away. So now I'm throwing my sheet metal back in, and I knew this was going to be an issue because we moved the transmission and transfer case that way. We moved everything that way a little ways. So I knew that was going to be an issue right there, hitting the edge of my sticks there for the transfer case. What I didn't anticipate is I think it's going to hit the bell housing. So that's where I'm at now. Now I'm going to come in here and do a little bit of measuring. It looks like it's, should only be about an inch or so that it's got to move. But I'm going to go over there and do a little trimming on my sheet metal. As much as I hate to, I have to make that fit there. And then hopefully I can get away with just some tweaking, a little bending and shuffling around and make that fit. Man, I hope so. I hope I don't have to do any big replacing any sheet metal because that's going to be a pain in the butt. But the good news is once that's cleared and this piece sits on, the other pieces should fit, right? They should just sit in there. I know I need to do a little bit of trimming down there for my the hole right in there, the edge of that where my PTO for my winch goes. But hopefully this piece up here will fit. There's a whole piece that goes right in that hole that I went through great lengths to make sure I didn't have to cut it for my distributor and all that, fitting it in. So hopefully that fits in. And that's important to get fit in there because that's where my gas pedal needs to mount to. Somewhere in there. So I'm gonna do a little cutting, a little fitting, shuffling, and hopefully get that done soon. All right, guys, a little update for you. I just been jobbing it. Floor, kind of in. I got my two pieces in. The upper one, my lower one. Had to tweak a little bit. There's hardly, actually it touches right there. So I'm working on a little clearancing. And then my cap that goes over my shifter doesn't fit at all. I gotta cut out that part of it and make it fit down on there. And anyway, that's a problem for future Joe. Current problem, I'm trying to mount my gas pedal. This is an S10 gas pedal that obviously I've taken the heat to, heated it up in a few places. Been trying to find the best place to mount it. And then now here's where I'm at, cutting a square hole for my throttle cable, which also came out of an S10. If anybody knows how to cut a square hole better than me, leave it in the comments, let me know. Otherwise, I've just been doing it with a triangle file. So that's why I'm out of breath, why I'm sweaty, but I will persevere. Sorry, so shaky too. I'm gonna finish knocking that out. Then I just have to plug my throttle cable in there, mount my pedal. We should be in business. Giddy up. All right, well, here's where we are. I'll show you where I finished up here. I used the old S10 gas pedal, trimmed all the big sheet metal off, heated it up, twisted it, put a couple holes. I gotta fill that hole right there. That's where the old rod from the gas pedal went through. And I gotta fill that hole too. We'll get to that. But right now I have a gas pedal that functions. I hope it's comfortable. I put a lot of effort in trying to put it in a comfortable spot that's functional. It gets almost full throttle. Right now I got my helper with me. We're gonna dump the rest of the gas that we have in the can in there. We're gonna fire this thing up. Now I haven't even warmed this thing up really and gotten it on temp because my fan hasn't been hooked up, but I went ahead and tied that in, and that's pretty easy. I have a relay, 4 wires on the relay. We have our 12-volt switch power coming in. We have 12-volt hot constant, which I just tied into this one on the battery. It has a fuse in line with it. We have our, what else do we have? Our fan plus, which we hooked that up. And then we have, well, I think I went through them all, right? 12-volt keyed. Oh, and our switch. Sorry, the last one is our switch, which is that right there. Kind of acts to the ground to tie it in. So I think my fan, one goes to ground, one goes to power there. We're gonna give that a shot. So let's fire this thing up, huh? Let's see what it does. Maybe it'll move under its own power. All right, man, we're ready for our first test drive. Before I do, I want to show you this. Check out this piece of leather. My friend was over here and he's a leather worker. And he saw that I just had some of the original cloth and the rest was worn off. So he went and made this really cool leather strip to go on here for my hood welting. It's neat. Leather, it's got some grizzly bear tracks. It's got the VIN of the Jeep on here, serial number, and then some elk tracks and deer tracks, since this is my hunting rig. So that's a shout out to my neighbor, my friend Paul. I really appreciate that. That's very cool. All right, I'm gonna fire it up. We'll see how it idles and runs. Let it run for a second there, and then we're gonna hop in and see if we can just drive it around the neighborhood a little bit here. Let me fire it up. Pedal, I can tell you I don't like it. Okay. There we go. Yeah, it down. Let's do it. Clutch takes a little getting used to. parts that we didn't use float around the back. That's what we hear. It's a clutch, it's everything. It's a little getting used to.
Sounds pretty neat.
Well, I need to put a muffler on it still. Good. I'm going up the hill to my house. This used to be almost a low range event. There certainly was no accelerating. Now I'm in second gear. It's pretty good. Hey, we're pretty stoked about this old Jeep. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe, follow along. Let's see what adventure's next. All right, I'm a mess. My garage is a mess, but I have exhaust on the Jeep. Here's where it comes across. I have a heat shield there to protect my radiator from the exhaust heat. Underneath, ties in with the exhaust from this side. Goes back there, you can see my O2 sensor. Tucks up underneath inside the C channel of the frame like that, comes back over the axle through my muffler and then out my custom tailpipe. Clearly I didn't get too wrapped around making it like a show car, but I wanted it tucked up where it wasn't going to drag on everything. Let's see what it sounds like. Well, that's it. It's hard to tell through the iPhone, I'm sure. But it's not bad. I like it. Can't wait to drive it.